Peace be with you. So, I wanted to make a video about the dangers of video games, especially on the youth. Now, we all like, obviously, to have fun and to entertain ourselves, and fun might vary from one individual to another. We don't all like the same things, like we don't all like the same food, and so on. But the majority of people do enjoy playing video games. Now, in this video, I'm going to be speaking about the dangers of playing video games and why it is better for a Muslim to stay away from such a lifestyle. Now, video games obviously is known to be a source of addiction in people. I mean, I've seen it within my own community, and I've seen the ill effects, the dangers, the harmful effects of such said games. Obviously, many video games are evil in nature because the message is corrupted. Behind the video games, not all video games are the same. You have some very bad video games, and you have some somewhat less violent, less evil video games. But let's talk about the main ones out there. So we have GTA. GTA, that stands for Grand Theft Auto. Theft is forbidden in Islam. It is forbidden in Islam completely. And there's a penalty for this, as Allah says in chapter 5, verse 38. And I already spoke about this issue, but that's not the point. You're actually playing a game, a theft. Think about it. Think about how evil this is, and how much of an evil impact it's gonna do on the viewer, on the player. And you might say, a lot of people, they're trying to just, sugarcoat it. A lot of people, some of them are trying their level best to make it sound like it's nothing evil. They might be like, it's just a game. It's just I'm just playing. I'm not doing it in real life. But that's not even the point. Is that it impacts you. I mean, the Satan, the shaitan, the devil, the Satan. How do you think he deceives people? He doesn't just come out as somebody and tells him, go rob a bank, go do this, fornicate, do this, consume intoxicants. He comes to you in a much more subtle way, right? And he comes to you through video games indeed, right? He comes to you in a way that is very, measured, right? So at first, perhaps, you feel desensitized, and that's why a lot of video game players, they have issues. The lines between fiction fiction and reality, or rather, what is the life in the game and the real life. The line is blurred, right? And to the point where some of them do crazy things, right? In America, right? How many, people, after playing violent video games like Call of Duty and all this, they end up, some of them, shooting and shooting innocent people, right? And doing all kinds of crazy things like that. How do you feel this happened? What led to that point, right? And of course, we're not saying that video games are controlling them, but it's definitely a starting point, right? It is what we know in Islam as the footsteps of Satan, right? Allah says in the Quran, He tells us, do not follow the footsteps of Satan. Because Satan is not going to come at you and say, do that sin, commit fornication, lie, take interest, do this, cheat in business, do this. No, 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 no. Satan is much subtler than that. Satan comes to you. The way he fools you is in steps, in stages. First off, he comes to you, in a rather innocent way. then he moves on to bigger things and worse things, right? So video games are definitely a cause of issues, right? In a lot of our youth, unfortunately. And even if it doesn't get to this point, it is an addiction, and it takes over, right? And obviously, the same can be said about social media. But this video is gonna focus. It's gonna focus on video games, right? So, video games, as you know, many people who play, they lose complete, track of time. And this is evil in Islam because time is valuable and should be used, properly. Do something beneficial, right? If you I could never understand, what do you gain from these video games, right? Do you get a prize? Do you get money out of it? Do you get, something? I mean, you don't get anything from it. It's just amusement, right? And that's what Allah says about this life, by the way, in the Quran. He says this life is nothing but amusement, right? So this is what you do. You keep amusing yourself with that. And this is just wrong, right? And you should be doing more beneficial things, right? And not only that, but video games gives you a feeling of control, that you're in control of your surroundings, of everything. And that's wrong too, because Allah is the only one in control, right? So by you thinking that you're in control, you can just, do all kinds of things. This leads to a feeling of superiority, right? Superiority when you're feeling like you control the game, and slowly but surely, you'll start thinking that you control your surroundings outside of the game, right? And it's very evil. It leads to addiction. Many of these video games have a corrupted message, like GTA and Call of Duty. All this, all these silly games. They do not actually. They're not proven to be beneficial. Some of them might be beneficial, a few, but the rest are very high, right? And obviously, I'm not saying that playing video games is forbidden per se, because there's no real evidence to suggest that it's forbidden. And even if somebody plays, all right, let's say once a month, perhaps, perhaps with your children, but it should be done. I'm not saying that you should never play such games, but you should do it rarely. And only being selective of the games you choose, right? And I'll conclude by saying something, yes, about myself. I do not play video games at all. I do other things, and I do see it in my surroundings. I see many people wasting their precious time with this, and obviously not being, not praying, missing prayers. It's forbidden as a Muslim. I mean, if you do play and then you miss your prayers, this is completely forbidden, right? Get rid of that, that whatever it is, that game, sell it or something, because it takes you away from the remembrance of Allah, right? And Allah says that from among the people are those who purchase idle tales, right? Amusement, to mislead others from the way of Allah. That could apply to video games to a certain extent, couldn't it? So let's try to be rational. Again, I'm not saying that video games are forbidden. I'm not saying that they're 100% evil, not all of them. I'm not saying that they're 100% good either, right? We really have to use the brain that God has given us. If you play sometimes, once in a while, and you make sure it's rarely, for example, once a month, perhaps, and it shouldn't be too long, perhaps 30 minutes, something like this, then again, perhaps, why not, but, keep in mind that it might lead to addiction, and addiction is something we should try our level best to avoid as Muslims. So that's it for this video on video games. And again, if you want to take your chances and play a little bit, do it, but be mindful of the effects of it, and also be very selective of the video games that you choose, right? Don't do games that are, that have a corrupted message and an Islamic message, right? I mean, stealing is un-Islamic, harming others, that's an Islamic, like these games where you boxing people in the face, that is forbidden in Islam. You know, fighting people is forbidden in Islam unless to protect ourselves, to defend oneself in self-defense. But other than that, it's totally forbidden. So don't spend too much time with that, with those silly things. Peace be with you.